Hey everyone, and welcome. So, you know how we're always talking about the cloud? It sounds kind of magical, right? Like it's just up there somewhere. Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain and look at what's really going on. We're talking about the massive, physical, real world stuff, the actual concrete, steel, and fiber optic cables that powers pretty much everything you do online. And specifically, we're diving into the world of Amazon Web Services, or AWS. And to really get why this all matters, you first have to understand just how big AWS is. I mean, the scale is just mind-boggling. Check this out. As we look at mid-2025, AWS has a solid 30% of the entire global cloud market. That puts them way ahead of their closest competition. We're not talking about a small slice of the pie here. AWS is, without a doubt, the engine powering a massive chunk of the internet as we know it. So that really brings us to the big question, right? When you upload a photo or stream your favorite show, where is that stuff actually going? What does the cloud physically look like? I'll give you a hint. It's not some magical fog floating in the sky. It's real buildings, packed to the gills with very, very real computers. And, the reason this whole gigantic network even exists, it all goes back to the original big idea behind AWS. Their goal was essentially to level the playing field for technology. They wanted to take all that super powerful, super expensive computing power that only the biggest companies in the world could afford and just give it to everyone, to make it accessible to anyone with a cool idea and a credit card. That's the why. That's the reason they've poured billions into building all this stuff. Okay, so here's a quick look at where we're headed. First, we'll nail down what the cloud physically is. Then, we'll look at the big picture with AWS regions. After that, we'll zoom in to see what's inside a region, these things called availability zones. Then we'll get even closer to you with something called the edge. We'll wrap up by talking about why this is also important and, this is key, what your part is in all of this. All right, first up, the global footprint. We're going to start at the 30,000-foot view here. The entire AWS world is basically divided up into these huge, separate geographic areas they call regions. So what's a region? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's a specific geographic area somewhere on the planet. Think places like Northern Virginia or Ireland or Tokyo. But here's the most important word you need to remember: isolation. Each region is designed to be completely on its own, like its own separate island. This means if something catastrophic happens in one region, say a huge power grid failure in Europe, it has absolutely zero impact on a region in Asia. This idea of isolation is the bedrock, the first step to building a truly stable and resilient system. Okay, so now that we know what a region is, let's zoom in a little closer. If a region is like a whole city, what are the individual neighborhoods? Well, this is where we get to the real secret sauce of how AWS keeps things running all the time. We're talking about availability zones, or AZs for short. Now, this is super important. An availability zone isn't just a single data center. Don't think of it as one building. It's actually a cluster of at least one, but usually more massive, totally separate data centers. Each one has its own independent power, its own cooling, its own network connections, the whole nine yards. They're built close enough to each other so data can zip between them super fast, but, and this is the clever part, they're far enough apart that they won't be affected by the same disaster. And this is really where the genius of the whole design shines through, because they are physically separate. A single disaster, a fire, a flood, even something as simple as a construction crew accidentally cutting a major fiber optic cable might take out an entire AZ. But the other availability zones in that same region, they just keep on chugging along, completely unaffected. It's a brilliant way to contain failures. So you might be asking, okay, that's cool, but how do I actually use this? Well, developers use this setup to build applications that are almost impossible to knock offline. It's a really simple but incredibly powerful idea. You don't just put your app in one AZ. Instead, you put your application in, say, AZ1. Then you create an identical copy, a replica, in AZ2. Then you just spread your users' traffic across both of them. So if that first AZ suddenly goes dark for some reason, all the traffic automatically flips over to the second one. And for your users, they notice absolutely nothing. It's seamless. And believe me, this isn't just some abstract theory. This multi-AZ architecture is exactly how AWS can offer these just insane guarantees. Take their S3 storage service, for example. They offer 99.999999% durability. We call that 11 nines. What does that even mean? Well, it means if you were to store 10 million files in S3, you could expect to lose just one of them about every 10,000 years. Just think about that. That's the raw power of building with physical redundancy.
But wait, there's more. The story doesn't end with regions and AZs. For some things, you need to be even faster. Think about real-time gaming or live video streaming, where every millisecond counts. For those situations, AWS pushes its infrastructure even closer to you, the end user, and we call this layer the edge.
And they do this in a few really cool ways. First, you've got local zones, which are kind of like mini AWS pop-ups in major cities. Then you have wavelength zones, which are even crazier. They actually put AWS services inside the 5G networks of companies like Verizon. And finally, there's AWS Outposts, where they will literally ship you a rack of genuine AWS hardware to put right inside your own company's data center. It's all about one thing: absolutely crushing latency and making things as fast as humanly possible.
Okay, so we've seen the what and the how, the regions, the availability zones, the edge locations, but let's talk about the so what. Why does any of this matter? What does this incredible global nervous system of computers actually let people do?
Well, for one, it enables a scale that is almost impossible to wrap your head around. Take FINRA, the organization that regulates the financial industry. Every single day, they use AWS to analyze 75 billion market events. Let that sink in. They're combing through an absolute ocean of data to spot things like fraud and insider trading, a job that would be literally impossible without having access to this kind of on-demand power. It also enables some pretty mind-blowing efficiency. You know iRobot, right? The company that makes the Roomba vacuum? They run their entire global fleet of connected devices on AWS. But here's the kicker. That whole worldwide operation is managed by a team of less than 10 people. That's what's possible when you can stop worrying about buying servers and fixing broken hard drives and just focus on building your product. And of course, it's the engine behind a lot of the entertainment we all enjoy every day. A company like Netflix, for example, is built on top of AWS. They use it for more than just streaming movies to you. They use it to build what they call self-managing infrastructure. Basically, they use AWS tools to automatically detect and fix problems, which means fewer errors and a ton of saved time for their engineers. Okay, we're heading into our final section, and honestly, this might be the most important concept to understand. AWS builds this amazing, super reliable foundation. But what you do with it and how you build on top of it, that's on you. This idea is called the shared responsibility model. The whole model is actually pretty simple to grasp, but it's absolutely essential. Think of it like this. AWS is responsible for the security of the cloud. That's the physical stuff we've been talking about. The guards, the fences, the concrete data centers, the hardware. They've got that covered. But you are responsible for security in the cloud. That means it's your job to protect your own data, to set up your own digital firewalls, to patch your software, and, this is a big one, it's your job to actually build your apps to use multiple availability zones. See, AWS gives you all the tools you need to be resilient, but you're the one who has to pick them up and use them. So there you have it. When you really peel back the curtain, you see that the cloud isn't some abstract concept at all. It's something very real, very physical, and incredibly powerful. It's a worldwide foundation, built from the ground up on these core ideas of isolation and redundancy, all to enable a scale we could barely have imagined just a couple of decades ago. So, AWS has built the platform. They've laid the groundwork. The only question left is, what are you going to build on it?